now that you and your students have gotten acquainted, you can move on with the next activity, which is called the Identification of Unknown Objects activity. This activity is pretty simple. Basically what you'll do is take some everyday kind of objects, place them in a bag, an opaque bag, close the bag, pass the bag around to your students, and have them place their hand inside the bag and make observations of the object. Now the emphasis here is making observations and not necessarily conclusions as to what the object is inside the bag. When we talk about observations, we're encouraging them to make statements like, the object is hard, the object is soft, the object is round, the object is warm, the object is cold, the object is rough, or it's smooth. We've gathered some examples of objects here that you might think about using with your students. You might start with something simple, like a CD, for example. Place this in the bag, then pass it around, and have your students make observations. You may ask them questions like, what shape is it? Is it three-dimensional? Is there something in the center of it? What about the shape of this hole, or that shape they're feeling in the center? Is it the same consistent shape all the way around? After everyone has had their chance at making the observation of the object, go ahead and remove the object from the bag and let students decide whether they were correct or incorrect in their observations. You might then move to objects that have a similar shape. In this case, I've got two bracelets here, and if you look closely, one of these bracelets has a sharp edge to it. It's not a smooth, rounded edge, whereas the other one does. Another observation that you might want to your students to try for is, were these objects the same size? So what you possibly could do is place one of the bracelets in the bag first and send it around, and then not reveal yet what the object is, and then take the other bracelet and do the same thing. Put it in the bag, send it around, and then talk about it. Were they the same size? Were they the same shape? Could one fit inside the other? Questions like that are really good for your older students. Now along the same lines, we've got a couple of toys here, Fisher-Price people, and you can do the same kind of thing. You might, if you put them in at the same time, you can have them make the observations and say, did they both have something on their head? Was the object on the head of these toys the same shape? Were they the same size? Did they have clothes on or no clothes on? In this case, this one here is sporting a bib, and so you can determine whether your students felt that on the toy. Another object here which is fun to use is this spool here. And I think most students will readily identify the shape, and then you can have them, how many holes did it have in the upper surface, that went all the way through. And then the good question is, was there thread on the spool? And for those that are good at making their observations, you might even ask them, how long was the thread on the spool? Light bulbs, like these incandescent bulbs here, are really good to challenge your students. If you put them in at the same time, again, you can ask for size. You might ask them, are they the same wattage bulbs? Are the bases the same? Now some students can realize, well, they can possibly feel the markings on the end of the bulb here, and maybe be able to determine a wattage. You may ask them a question like, are they made by the same company? And again, feeling that. And then you might ask, do you think these bulbs still light up? Some really fun objects you might use are some toys, and in this case, if you choose some broken toys, and in this case we have this little pickup here, and you might again, go for the observations. Does it have more than one part? Is it hard? And then you might probe for, was it a complete toy? Did it have any problems? And then if they, say, yeah, well, it felt like it was smashed, ask them which side was it smashed on. Ask them if there had been a driver in this little pickup. Could he have been hurt? Or can you guess maybe how this happened? And finally, we have another broken toy here. In this case, they may be readily able to say, well, it's a toy animal of some sort, and then you can ask them, did it feel soft or smooth? And then ask them for details. Is it a dog? What kind of animal do you think it is? And then ask why they think it's that animal. Ask them, was the mouth open? Was the mouth closed? And then ask about the defects. What side were the defects found? Was there more than one defect on the animal? And then there can be really simple things like this, and sometimes objects out of context can be quite interesting. This is actually an ear from a potato head toy, but out of context, you may come up with all kinds of ideas. What is the shape? Is it shaped like a letter? Just anything. And an interesting question you might probe, which is what color do they think that object is inside there? And you can say, well, that's asking quite a bit. But then it brings up the point that if you're just using the sense of touch, there are limitations in making observations. So again, this is an activity which encourages your students to think like a scientist does. Chemists, biologists, all types of people who work in scientific fields are constantly making observations every day in their work, and it's important that their observations are accurate. Enjoy your time with your students. This is a very fun activity. An extension to this that you might consider is to have your students bring back some objects that they only know about and have them keep them concealed. And then again, you can have the students utilize your bag or pillowcase or whatever you chose to put those objects in and pass them around, and have the students make observations again, and you make observations yourself to determine what the object might be in that bag.